What if one of the most innocent-sounding nursery rhymes in the English language wasn't innocent at all? What if Jack and Jill Went Up the Hill was never about children, but about loss, punishment, betrayal, or even death? Welcome to the Silent Lodge, where forgotten stories and quiet horrors come back to life. If ancient rhymes hiding dark truths intrigue you, go ahead and subscribe, because what you're about to hear may change the way you see childhood rhymes forever. Everyone knows the verse. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. For most of us, it's a harmless chant sung in childhood, repeated in schools, and passed on by parents as something playful. Yet behind these rhythmic lines lies a tangled history, one that has twisted and morphed through centuries. And when you peel back the layers, what emerges is a story of power, pain, and perhaps even blood. At first glance, it seems simple enough: a boy and a girl climbing a hill, an accident, and a fall. But pause and ask, why were Jack and Jill fetching water on a hill in the first place? Historically, wells were never found on hills. They were dug in valleys, near rivers or streams, where water was abundant. The very image of climbing upward to gather water makes little sense in a literal context, which suggests something important. This rhyme was never meant to be taken literally. It's symbolic, possibly allegorical. The question then becomes, symbolic of what? To begin untangling the riddle, we must trace its origins. The earliest printed version dates back to 1765, appearing in Mother Goose's Melody, a collection of rhymes and songs for children. But many folklorists believe the rhyme circulated in oral tradition long before it was ever written down. In those days, rhymes weren't primarily for entertainment. They were mnemonic devices, tools to remember events, lessons, or warnings in times when speaking openly could be dangerous. This transforms Jack and Jill from mere storybook characters into something else entirely. They might represent real people. They might symbolize political figures. Or they might be echoes of ritual and myth that go back much further than we realize. Already, you can sense the unease. A rhyme that millions of children chant casually may not have been made for children at all. Instead, it may be a veiled history, one passed down in sing-song form because writing it outright was too dangerous. This is where the rhyme begins to darken. Scholars have linked it to royal executions, ancient fertility rites, forgotten pagan cycles, and even tragedies preserved by local folklore. But no matter which interpretation you follow, one detail remains constant. The story is not innocent. The hill, the fall, the broken crown, these are not random details. They are symbols pointing to something hidden. So the next time you hear, Jack and Jill went up the hill, listen carefully, because beneath the playful rhythm, there may be whispers of betrayal, loss, and death. And the deeper we go into its origins, the more the rhyme begins to unravel into something far more unsettling than a simple nursery tale. If Jack and Jill isn't about children, then who were they? Some researchers believe the rhyme may be more than allegory. It may be a coded record of royal bloodshed. One of the most compelling theories connects the rhyme to the bloody days of the French Revolution. Picture Paris in the late 1700s. The streets echo with anger, the guillotine stands ready, and the monarchy trembles on the edge of destruction. In this interpretation, Jack is no clumsy boy at all, but King Louis XVI of France. His crown didn't simply mean the top of his head, it meant his sovereignty, his rule, his very kingship. And when he fell down and broke his crown, it was literal. He lost not just his power, but his head, severed by the guillotine in 1793. But the story doesn't end with him. Jill, his queen, Marie Antoinette, came tumbling after. Not long after her husband's execution, she too was dragged before the guillotine, condemned by the people she once ruled, and executed. The rhyme's innocent 4 lines begin to sound less playful, more like a veiled record of royal decapitation. Now imagine this rhyme sung in the decades after the Revolution, whispered in streets where speaking openly could still be dangerous. A child's song becomes a form of hidden storytelling, carrying the memory of violence while concealing its meaning from those too young to understand. But the French theory isn't the only one. Earlier versions of the rhyme, those circulating in England long before the Revolution, suggest even darker layers. One version, recorded in the 1700s, goes like this. And Jill came in, and she did grin to see his paper plaster. Her mother whipped her across the knee for laughing at disaster. This darker continuation changes the entire tone. It's no longer a silly accident, it's cruelty, punishment, and domestic violence. A girl laughs at tragedy, and her laughter is answered with a beating. This variant was scrubbed from later editions, too disturbing for the sanitized Victorian vision of childhood. But its existence reminds us of something crucial. Nursery rhymes were rarely written for children at first. They were reflections of adult fears, politics, and pain, wrapped in rhythm so they could pass safely from mouth to mouth. Another school of thought shifts from politics to mythology. Some folklorists argue that Jack and Jill were never humans at all but celestial bodies. Jack represented the waning moon, Jill the waxing moon. His fall was the loss of light during the lunar cycle, while her tumbling symbolized rebirth or continuation of the cosmic rhythm. The crown broken was not just a head, it was the crown of light, shattered as the moon disappeared. This lunar theory pushes the rhyme back further, perhaps to pagan rituals and fertility myths. In this reading, the rhyme isn't just a story of a fall, it's a symbolic chant of life, death, and rebirth tied to the cycles of nature. Whether you see Jack and Jill as royals losing their heads, celestial bodies rising and falling, or victims of punishment and cruelty, one thing becomes certain. This is no innocent children's tale. The rhyme is a mask, and behind it lurks blood, ritual, and memory. If you trace the rhyme further back, before France, before Victorian England, you find yourself not in palaces or nurseries, but on the side of an ancient hill. Because some folklorists argue that Jack and Jill was never about royals or accidents at all. It was about ritual, about blood, about sacrifice. The setting? A hilltop, always a hill. Why a hill? In pre-Christian Europe, hills were sacred. They were places of burial, of worship, of offerings to the gods. And what do Jack and Jill do? They climb a hill to fetch water. But think about that. Why would you go up a hill to fetch water? Water flows downhill. Wells and rivers sit in valleys. The logic doesn't add up unless the act of fetching water is symbolic, not literal. Some historians connect this to fertility rites practiced long before Christianity swept across Europe. Water was life, water was renewal, and climbing a hill to fetch, it was not about filling a bucket. It was about invoking blessing, rebirth, and survival for the community. But in these ancient rituals, blessing often demanded a price. Sometimes the price was an animal sacrifice. Sometimes it was human. The fall of Jack, breaking his crown, and Jill tumbling after May symbolized the ritual death of sacrificial figures, chosen to represent life and rebirth through their loss. Their fall was the community's renewal. Death feeding life, just as crops sprouted from soil enriched by blood. In this chilling interpretation, the rhyme is a faint echo of ceremonies carried out in pagan times, preserved in oral tradition long after their meaning was forgotten. And there's more. In some Scandinavian and Celtic traditions, there are records of twin sacrifices, a boy and a girl chosen together, bound together in ritual. Jack and Jill, side by side, climbing to their fate. Their deaths marked as necessary for the fertility of fields, for the safety of villages, for the turning of the seasons. The rhyme, then, may not have been a playful song for children, but a hushed reminder of the costs once demanded by unseen powers. Supporting this theory is the strange persistence of the hill itself. Generations later, when people repeated the rhyme, they never replaced it with the well or the stream or the riverbank. The hill remained, always the hill. Almost as though memory itself insisted on keeping the place of ritual alive, even if the meaning was blurred. When Christianity spread across Europe, it often absorbed pagan traditions, disguising them in new clothing while keeping their bones intact. Festivals became saints' days, rituals became holidays, and ancient sacrifices were recast as harmless rhymes. In this light, Jack and Jill is not about play or punishment. It is a fragment of ritual memory, carried forward for centuries in the sing-song voices of children who never knew the weight of the words. This interpretation may unsettle us most of all, because it suggests that the rhyme isn't simply political or historical. It's prehistoric. It is a fossil of belief, a whisper from a time when survival demanded offerings to the earth, and when death was the price of life. And that simple nursery rhyme we once chanted on playgrounds? It might just be the faint, haunting echo of an ancient sacrifice. So, what are we left with? A simple 4-line rhyme, yes, but behind it, centuries of whispers, shadows, and unresolved questions. Did Jack and Jill really fall victim to politics, their rhyme echoing royal scandals? Did they descend from pagan sacrifice, tumbling from a hill not by accident, but by ritual design? Or is the rhyme simply an innocent verse, stretched by centuries of imagination? The answer may lie in why this rhyme refuses to die. Unlike hundreds of nursery rhymes that vanished with time, Jack and Jill has survived generation after generation. It appears in English manuscripts as early as the 1700s, but its roots, whether Scandinavian, French, or Germanic, go much deeper. Wherever it came from, it clung to culture. Why? Because it speaks to something primal. Children stumble, yes, people fall. But in Jack and Jill, the fall is more than physical. Jack broke his crown, a phrase that has always carried double meaning. In medieval English, crown could mean the head, but it could also mean authority, royalty, even life itself. To break the crown is not just to fall, it is to die, or to lose everything that defines you. Jill's fall, after Jack, is not just clumsiness, it is inevitability. It is the reminder that where one goes, others follow. No one escapes the hill, and perhaps that is the real reason this rhyme endures. Beneath every theory, royal gossip, pagan ritual, or forgotten tragedy, lies one undeniable truth. It is a story of mortality. Jack falls, Jill follows. Death comes, and it does not come alone. Think about how we as children recited it. We laughed, we skipped, we fell to the ground pretending to tumble. Yet in our play, we were unknowingly reenacting an eternal drama. Life's climb, the sudden fall, the shared fate. Death dressed up as a game. Even darker still is the possibility that the rhyme itself was intended to mask trauma. Some scholars suggest that nursery rhymes were coded ways to preserve history, too dangerous to write plainly. Jack and Jill may have been real people, victims of execution, plague, or accident. But by turning them into a rhyme, their memory could be carried safely in the mouths of children. No censor could ban a nursery song. No ruler could silence a playground. In this way, history itself hid inside rhyme, waiting to be decoded centuries later. And maybe that is why the rhyme lingers. It doesn't matter if we know the truth. The truth is in the feeling. That unease when you hear the words again as an adult, that whisper that says, "This is not just play. There is something older here, something heavier, something that binds us to the past through memory, ritual, and rhyme." Jack climbs, Jack falls, Jill follows, and somewhere beneath centuries of laughter, the echo of sacrifice, death, and inevitability still clings to those 4 lines. Perhaps the most chilling thought is this: the rhyme was never meant for children at all. It was meant for us, the adults who remember.